So, hello everyone. Today I can greet you from Nevada City, California, at the Insight Center. That's the sibling to IMC. That's called Mountain Stream Meditation Center. And I think one of the delights of the name that the founder, my good friend John Travis, emphasized many years ago, is the initials for Mountain Stream is pronounced empty. And so pointing to the wonderful Buddhist teachings of emptiness, and which brings us to the kind of maybe a kind of final talk on this topic of not self, the insight into not self. And perhaps we'll continue with another week, kind of finishing up the whole series. But in the Theravada Buddhist tradition that I teach from, the expression not self is comparable, or maybe the same, almost the same, as the Mahayana teachings on emptiness. That as valuable as self is in a certain way, the Buddha didn't reject all forms of self. And I'll talk more about that. But he did emphasize that all forms of self have a certain form of emptiness, in that they're empty because they're always changing and shifting, because they're in some way or other constructed, built up by life experience, by different mental constructs we have, understandings we have, that we inherit from our society, our cultures, that there's no inherent, no original, timeless self. There's no soul, but rather it's all contingent, it's all in flux, all dynamic. And so that rather than taking self as the center of our experience, as the center of who we are, there's something about taking the empty center as our center. The big center that, like in council, a wonderful process of people gathering together in a big circle. In order, sometimes council process can very profound conversations that people can have with each other, but no one person is the center. No one person dominates and is on a pedestal in the middle. And the empty space in the circle is where it kind of represents the potential of a community coming together to have a profound conversation that can go much deeper and fuller and richer than one can do alone. So, each individual person can create this empty circle that's with emptiness in the middle, and all the parts of ourselves, all the different aspects of ourselves can gather together in council, where they all have a valuable place, invaluable place, but most valuable is the empty in the middle. That's where the potential resides. That's where the possibility of freedom resides. And that's where we can rest. So the switch in Buddhism from placing the self at the center to placing non-clinging at the center, to take the absence of a preoccupation with self at the center, and openness to possibility, openness to not needing to be anyone for anything for anybody, and to rest there, to allow the potential, the possibilities of that empty, friendly space to welcome us into its freedom and allow all parts of ourselves to be in a profound relationship of counsel. They all can be respected this way. So, we begin in meditation and closing your eyes. And with your eyes closed, spend a little bit more time now kind of feeling your way into your posture. Maybe wiggling a little bit, swaying a little bit. So you can kind of enter into feel and sense the body. And then to enter the body more fully with the help of a fuller breath. Almost as if the breath, deeper breath is giving you, guiding you, holding your hand into your body to feel it, to discover how it is. And on the exhale, to relax. And then letting the breathing return to normal. And taking time to feel through the body as present moment experience, how you are. How are you physically? As if you're welcoming all the parts of yourself into the circle, the council. Not trying to change anything right now. Just recognize, feel, sense how your present moment experience is. Checking in. Almost checking in as if it's your movement of breathing, which is doing the checking, guiding the checking. In sync with the rhythm of breathing, touch into your thinking mind, your heart, how it is. And breathing normally. Now, as you exhale, relax and move your whole system towards resting here, now. Resting is a kind of a downward movement, as if you're settling into the pull of gravity. In whatever way you can feel that there's a place of rest inside, let yourself rest in that. A place within where all the effort around self, all the concerns about me, myself, and mine, for a few minutes can rest. Nothing to be, nothing to become, nothing to attain, nothing to fix, nothing to resolve during these minutes of meditation. But allow all the efforts to do so, to experience rest, to settle, relax. And in any place where there might be some rest, even hints of rest, there you might find the glorious emptiness, the wonderful center of counsel, the circle of all your parts. They can all be there in the circle. But let this very center of it all be a peaceful, empty space. A place of rest, empty of self. Whatever self might be for you, it's on the edges of the circle. Rest in the rest. Rest in the emptiness. Rest in that place inside that's free of self, even if self is around the edges. Rest in the empty space of awareness. In council, the idea is that everyone can speak in turn, but the idea is to speak briefly from the heart. Don't let any part of you go on and on speaking endlessly. Thank whatever part of you speaks and come back to the empty middle. Rest there. Let that empty middle be large, peaceful, spacious, with lots of silence before someone speaks again. And let them speak briefly, if they do. we come to the end of this sitting, to continue this metaphor of counsel, in all the parts of who you are can be included in the circle, sitting counsel, having a profound conversation. Each part has its place, but each part is clearly part of the whole circle. No part sits in the middle, dominating, being the loudest, takes up all the attention. Something profound happens when all parts are included, each in their own way, with this wonderful empty middle through which we hear each other, see each other, respect each other, allow something profound. When I was taught the process of counsel, we were told to speak from the heart in counsel. Speak briefly and speak from the heart. We were also told not to plan ahead what we were going to say. So in the moment now, here, speaking briefly, speaking from the heart, for oneself, in care of oneself. And then imagine that other people in your life, strangers, are invited to sit in the edges of the circle. And that you can make your circle larger and larger. Everyone can be included in this place of respect, a place where everyone's heart is welcomed. And from your seat in the circle, you sit with respect and care for all the different parts, all the people there, the whole world, and through and across the empty middle, the vast, peaceful center of this great circle that we are as a human race. Wishing everyone well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. So I don't have a bell with me, so I'll offer my gratitude and bow, and that'll be the end of the sitting. Thank you. So, hello and welcome to this continuing series on insight, the center of insight meditation. And this will be the last talk that's specifically about not self. And for those of you who were here yesterday, you might recall that in sitting in the middle of impermanence, in changing nature of phenomena, and we turn the attention around 180 degrees to the one who is observing change, whatever that one is, the experience, the sense, the location of observing or knowing or being aware. And to observe that also disappears, that also comes and goes, is part of the river, part of the constant flow that has value. Each current in the river is valuable for carrying the river along. Each little wave of the river is part of the river for sure. And so this sense of self that we have is just another wave, another current that shifts and changes and comes and goes. And in that process, something deep can get let go. Any attachment we have to self, any clinging to self, and whether there is or is not a self, that is not a question that the Buddha was interested in. In fact, he was less than interested in it. He felt that this whole question, is there or is not a self, was a detour, was a dead end, was not useful. And but there is freedom from preoccupation with self, freedom from attachment, the freedom from the stress of self. And if you're paying really careful attention, and mindfulness helps a lot, we can start seeing that a fair amount of our self-concern carries with it stress, tension, and sometimes it's quite extreme. So extreme that some people it makes their life so difficult that self-concern, the self-criticism, feelings of not belonging and not being important, being somehow wrong, being guilty, that they cause self-harm. And it can be quite depressing for people. But what we're doing here is not necessarily working through depression, working through these things, but questioning the very basis upon which that stress arises, the tension arises, the clinging, the orientation around self, the making a self, building a self. And it's possible to let go very deeply. And the deeper the letting go, the more freedom we can experience. And the more freedom we have, the issue of is there or is not a self is not particularly important. It's more of an intellectual interest. And but how we get attached to self, that's interesting if we want freedom. And when we're free, then things are as they are. But one of the things that happens with deep freedom is that we're much more aware of the contingent, impermanent nature of the ways in which we construct self, the roles of self we have, the assumptions of self, the self-becoming that we're involved in different roles, different parts of life, different situations. We call on different ways of being organized as a human being in order to engage in the world. And a fascinating teaching the Buddha gave is that rather than being concerned about is there is not a self, the teachings, he says, is if the way that we've constructed a self, hold a self in a particular situation, if that is harmful for you, if that is unhealthy for you, if that's unwholesome, that you can let go of. If how you construct a self, hold a self together in a particular situation, and it's healthy for you, if it's wholesome, beneficial for the situation, then continue with it. Don't make it a problem. But do know that it's temporary, it's constructed, it's coming together of different aspects of who we are. Don't make that into the self that we are. Don't hang on to it. Be ready for it to shift and change. And so you're ready to construct another healthy way of being and organizing and being with yourself. And one way to understand this that I value is this idea that whatever the self is, whatever the self-construct is, it is constructed, and it's empty of any inherent, permanent existence. It's not a soul in Buddhism that continues over lifetimes or continues after death. And it's not a soul. That whole question of what it is there a soul or not a soul, is the same as the question, is there a self or not a self? It's all empty and contingent. Whether there is or is not a soul, that's not relevant for Buddhism. What's relevant is what we can actually experience. Always going back to how we're experiencing here and now, because it's an experience here and now that we build our stress, our tension, and where we find our freedom. And in that freedom, then, it's kind of like we discover at the center of all things, center of our life, center of this world, is a vast emptiness, or a vast freedom, a vast spaciousness. And in that spaciousness, I love the analogy that it's like the great, beautiful, empty space around a circle of people sitting in council. People have sat in council for millennia in wise ways, sitting around a fire, sitting in a circle in the woods, sitting circle in a temple or different places, in order to have conversations where everyone is an equal, that everyone has a voice, and where everyone, but no one person can make a decision. That in a sense, there's a veto power. No, you can speak, but we don't necessarily going to do what you're saying. We're going to listen deeply, find out what's going on here, and go to the depth of what this experience. And maybe after a while, we'll all know together what is the wisest way forward here. And but everyone is welcome to speak from the heart. And what that means for me is that all the different parts of yourself, all the different parts of how you want to, no matter if it's a wise or foolish part of yourself, there's an art in mindfulness to stop and listen and to hear deeply. Where is it coming from? From the heart. What's underneath it? What's the deeper call of? It's a deeper expression that's there. And so this idea of the emptiness of self actually creates space to listen and feel and know more and more deeply. And to do that with other people as well. Make space for them, hear them, and get to know what their heart is about. Some people don't even know their own heart, but maybe you can feel underneath, see through their words, or help them, support them to discover what their beautiful heart is like. So this whole teaching of not self is a profound teaching, profound possibility. You do not need to believe any teaching having to do with self, not self, no self. Just assuming another belief, like you're supposed to understand and believe this and now act accordingly, does a huge disservice to you. In insight meditation, the idea is to have insight, to see for yourself, to have it revealed how all this inner life works, so we get to see the operation, the construction, the dynamics of being attached to self, building a self, assuming a self, feeling the tension, the stress of it. And especially if we see this, the tension, let it go. There's no need for that tension around self. In fact, it gets in the way. And there's something much more profound here in you, in this world, that is this empty, friendly space, this empty, compassionate place where emptiness is not, where the phenomenal absence is not a diminishment of who we are, but is the very space that allows for love, for freedom, for creativity, for intelligence, for respect for all things to come forth. Let your circle be as wide and full and complete as you can. All parts of yourself, all parts of the world, let them all sit in your circle. You don't have to deny yourself just because you're not at the center. But you don't have to be asserting yourself by being at the center of all things. Let freedom be the center. Let rest be at the center. Let peace be at the center. Let this empty, spacious, porous, transparent love be at the center. Not you, but you have an important place in this circle. And share in the circle. Keep the circle going. Keep the love, keep the connection, keep the generosity to care for your circles. So, thank you. And I hope that this week's now on the topic of not self has given you new perspectives and new understandings to look at your own life. So a couple of things I'd like to announce and say before we end. Next week I won't be on YouTube for all of you, and we're very fortunate to have Matthew Brensilver back. And delighted that he'll be that you'll be able to he'll share his wisdom with you, be in your circle, and I'll be back the following week. And so one thing I'd like to ask also is for support for this phenomenal activity we're doing on YouTube. It's been over 5 years now that we've been gathering, that we've been broadcasting YouTube. And when I'm at IMC or here or now with my laptop, I can do it myself. But when I invite other teachers to come to teach, some of them know how to get onto YouTube, and it takes a little bit technical knowledge. And but then it's difficult to invite people who don't know the technology, and especially sometimes the first time they do it. And so we have a few people who are the support to manage these production when we have guests sometimes. And we might be having more guests who don't know how to do this. And what it takes is we connect to YouTube through Zoom. And so someone who's a little bit ability to be with Zoom, who might want to volunteer to help us with this. We also can use people who can help with some of the editing we do after this production. It's pretty simple. So someone who has a little bit of interest in the technology of it and the broadcasting of it and want to support that, and you get to meet the guest teachers this way and talked with them before and set it all up. So if any of you is interested in volunteering that way, you can go on IMC's website and look up volunteering, and there's a volunteer email there. And if you can, there's also a volunteer form. So either email that email and show your interest, or you can fill out the volunteer form that we have, and that would be greatly appreciated. And finally, as those of you who are late, I'm up in the Sierras in a place called Nevada City, a small town, and at a meditation center that was started by my good friend John Travis. 35 years ago, we both started teacher training together with Jack Cornfield, and so we've been kind of connected deeply, heartfully, all these 35 years, slowly growing as a teacher, and both of us ended up developing centers. And this is his in Nevada City, beautiful property with wonderful trees and very peaceful. And I'm going to show you a little bit around, and if you can see the center here. I go all the way around. Can I do that? I'm sitting facing this big window here, and I hope it's coming okay for you. And coming back in a full circle. And that gives you a little sense of it. And I'm going to be here tomorrow, Saturday, doing a half-day retreat together with John Travis. It's a fundraiser for his center here. All these centers, they do wonderful work, and they really succeed through the wonderful generosity of volunteers, the wonderful generosity of people who support the center, the wonderful generosity of people who support these teachers who are teaching freely and offering what they have. And so tomorrow is my wonderful opportunity to support Mountain Stream Meditation Center by doing this half-day retreat tomorrow as a fundraiser. And somehow the title of the fundraiser, which I've never seen anywhere before, it's called a happy fundraiser. So maybe just the fact that John Travis and I will be doing it together makes it happy. We're delighted with each other and being together. And so it's called a retreat. So there'll be some meditation, there'll be teachings, maybe some guided meditation. John and I having conversations, maybe talking about our experience as teachers. Exactly how this unfolds, we don't know. But Mountain Stream will have it on Zoom. So if some of you would like to come and be part of it, great. Maybe come and be part of it and be part of the circle of support for Mountain Stream, that would be great. And you can go on Mountain Stream Meditation Center's website to find the Zoom connection or registration or whatever is needed there. So thank you all, and when I return in a week from Monday, I'll be back at IMC. So thank you all, and bye-bye.